Lesson 6. Price-earnings ratios. Part 1. Flying blindfolded through a valley of volcanoes. Please read and pay attention to the disclaimer on this slide. Buying a stock without knowing its valuation multiple, like the price-earnings ratio, is like flying a plane blindfolded through a narrow valley of erupting volcanoes. It's quite reckless. We said in Lesson 3 that assessing risk and reward is one of the skills that most defines the best investors in the world. If you don't know how to calculate a company's market valuation and understand its importance, then evaluating the risk and reward of investing in its stock is very difficult to do effectively. Before we talk about stock valuation, let's talk about the art world. Great paintings touch our souls, connecting us to another human being through their unique artistic expression. Leonardo da Vinci famously said, "Where the spirit does not work with the hand, there is no art." On Wall Street, investors care more about what a painting is worth than whose souls they touch. Famous paintings are great stores of value, with works selling for many millions of dollars. This brings us to a challenging question. How do you really know if one painting is worth more than another? It's not so easy. I'll show you. Look at the two paintings on the slide. Which one do you think is worth more? Examine each one closely for a few seconds. This is an easy question to guess an answer to. The painting on the left looks like a masterpiece from the Renaissance period, while the one on the right looks like something you would buy in a tourist shop to make people laugh. As it turns out, the painting on the left is thought to be a lost Leonardo da Vinci painting called the Salvator Mundi. It sold at auction for $450 million in 2017. It is the most expensive painting ever sold. It shouldn't come as a surprise that the painting on the right is not the work of Da Vinci, and it's not worth anything close to $450 million. Shall we try a more difficult question? Which one of these paintings is worth more? Most people I've asked guess the painting on the right is the more expensive one. The truth is, my 6-year-old son, Cash, painted that one. The painting on the left is titled White on White and was painted by a famous artist named Kazimir Malevich. It hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York City and is estimated to be worth $85 million. I do love my son, but his painting is not worth that much. It turns out it's quite hard to determine the value of a painting. What makes it so challenging to value them is that you can't compare how much income each one generates. They're paintings. They don't generate income. They hang on walls or sit in vaults and hopefully appreciate over time. Of course, you can ask an art expert. However, in the art world, even the experts can be 100% wrong. In 2009, the largest art fraud in American history began to unravel and come to light. It was discovered that the Knoedler Gallery, once a prestigious institution, sold millions of dollars worth of forged paintings by abstract expressionist masters like Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko. The size of the fraud was estimated to be $80 million. Like we just said, it's hard to objectively calculate the relative values between different paintings because they don't generate income. With companies, we can employ objective valuation tools because they do generate income. It is important to have objective valuation metrics when evaluating a stock for investment. As much bias as possible needs to be removed from the investment process. This can be difficult to do if an investor's decisions are being governed by subjective factors like gut feelings or emotions. Remember, emotions are the enemy of successful investing. That's been true for hundreds of years. For example, during the 17th century, speculation in tulips soared to insane levels. People lost their minds and were paying the cost of a luxurious house for a single tulip bulb. You want to avoid getting caught up in market frenzies and speculative bubbles while your emotions get the better of you. Objective valuation metrics can help remove bias and emotions by providing an impartial and quantifiable basis for measurement. In this lesson, we are going to focus on one of the most popular valuation metrics, the price-earnings ratio. Before we jump into the topic of stock valuation, let's talk about business valuation in general. Remember, when you buy a stock, you're becoming an owner. Don't forget that. Think like an owner. Here's an example to help. Let's imagine that you win $15 million in the lottery. You decide to quit your job and retire to Florida to live near the water. You know that it's important to make your money work hard for you. So, you decide that you're going to buy a health club in South Beach, Miami, and live off the income it generates. You call a business broker and ask about health clubs for sale in the area. It turns out that there are 2 for sale. Both health clubs are located on the boardwalk in front of the beach, and both have almost identical designs and layouts. Each club generates $5 million in revenue and $1 million in profit per year. The owner of Club 1 is asking for $5 million. The owner of Club 2 wants $15 million. Thanks to the lottery, the asking price itself is not an issue. So, which club would you prefer to buy? If you buy Health Club number 1, then you're paying 5 times 1 year's profit, because the asking price of $5 million divided by $1 million in profit equals 5. That's a 20% yield on your money. If you buy Health Club number 2, then in that case, you're paying 15 times 1 year's profit, because the asking price of $15 million divided by $1 million in profit equals 15. That's a 6.7% yield on your money. With the information provided, Health Club number 1 appears to be a much better deal because it would pay you triple the return on your investment. If you think about valuation when buying a gym, you'd better think about it when buying a stock, as we'll soon see. If you ever want to invest in individual stocks and not limit yourself to just funds, understanding and paying attention to valuation is an essential skill. How do experienced investors use valuation metrics, like the price-earnings ratio? First, the PE ratio makes apples-to-apples comparisons across different companies quick and easy. That makes comparing multiple companies' valuations much easier. Second, beyond that benefit, the PE ratio can be used to evaluate the absolute value of a company. That means looking at a company without worrying about where other companies are being valued. Think of it this way. The PE ratio measures what investors are paying to own just $1 of a company's earnings. We're going to explain all of this further. First, let's talk about the P in the price-earnings ratio. The P stands for a company's share price. It's the most recent price where a company's stock traded at. The E stands for earnings per share, EPS, which is the net income of a company divided by the shares outstanding, otherwise known as the total number of shares in existence. By converting net income to earnings per share, we can look at the ratio of the price of one share to that single share's earnings. Companies typically provide earning per share data. Still, it's worth understanding how it's calculated. Recall from Lesson 4 on accounting, the green circle is where we find Microsoft's net income on its income statement. In the case of Microsoft, net income for their fiscal 2023 was $72.4 billion. For the shares outstanding number we need for the earnings per share calculation, companies provide that number in their financial reports, typically at the bottom of their income statements. Remember, the shares outstanding are the total shares in existence. The number of shares we're looking for is called the fully diluted shares outstanding. I know it sounds complicated, but the term just means the number of shares in existence, factoring in potential new shares from sources like employee compensation plans. In the case of Microsoft, the fully diluted shares outstanding as of the date of their 2023 annual report was 7.472 billion shares. That number is highlighted in the green circle. Now that we have the net income and shares outstanding data for Microsoft, calculating earnings per share is simply dividing one by the other. $72.4 billion in net income divided by 7.472 billion fully diluted shares outstanding equals $9.68 in earnings per share. Once you have the earnings per share, the PE ratio is just the share price of Microsoft at that time divided by the earnings per share. Based on the numbers on the slide, Microsoft is trading at 39 times its earnings. That means that at current prices, investors are paying $39 for every dollar of annual earnings the company generated over the past year. Remember earlier in the lesson we discussed picking a gym to buy in Miami. There's no difference between buying a gym or shares of Microsoft. In both cases, you get a share of the earnings they produce. In many ways, buying a stock is the same as buying a business. Congratulations! You have completed Lesson 6, Part 1.